Screw the grind, just buy yourself a 90. Matsuno's back to confuse us with political lore and tactical strategy stuff, and Nintendo takes a giant gut punch to the wallet. All this and more on This Week in Gaming. Alright, hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Thank you very much for joining me again. This is Aliside as always. This week we have a pretty big mishmash of news as there isn't too much happening in the software side of things. Kind of in that slump between holidays and the spring release cycle. So let's get into it. So as you may or may not know, Blizzard is on the cusp of releasing another expansion for World of Warcraft called Warlords of Draenor. I believe it is set to release sometime in the spring, although we don't have a solid release date for it yet, so it might be summertime. But we learned of a strategy that Blizzard might be using in order to attract perhaps new players or even reel back in some players that may have quit. The strategy is basically you can pay for or buy a level 90 upgrade for a character of your choosing. And their philosophy is it'll help players to jump straight to the endgame content where they can join other players that have been playing for a much longer time and basically just skip leveling 1 through 89 because as you may or may not know, that can be quite a hassle if you are using an alt character. They've also mentioned that if you pre-order or pre-buy the expansion, you'll be getting a level 90 upgrade as well on a character of your choosing also. So that's a good way of padding out your armory if you want an alt character to use, other than the one that you've been tirelessly pushing up towards that 90 cap. There is some controversy surrounding this, as some players are claiming that this is basically a buy-in to win, which I disagree with, since even though your character will be level 90, that does not mean that you will be getting any of the gear that a level 90 character may require to run endgame dungeons and that sort of thing. My personal opinion, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I'll wait to see how it works. Personally, I actually kind of enjoy grinding a little bit. I don't know. I like feeling like I developed the character from start to finish. So this is kind of, to me, a quick and easy way of doing so. Alright, and our next piece of news comes from a Kickstarter campaign, actually. I don't talk about these things too often because they're kind of a shifty scene if you get caught up in the wrong campaign. But this one seems pretty legit. It's got a lot of backers already and it's only in its second day. And it has a lot of backing from a pretty legit company as well as a pretty legit designer. Now with that long lead up, the Kickstarter is for Unsung Story Tale of the Guardians. And if you haven't heard of this yet, it's a collaboration between Playdeck, which is a prolific board game and handheld iOS strategy game maker, and Yatsumi Matsuno, who is the legendary developer of Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy XII, and a couple other lesser-known games. But Matsuno's like a god when it comes to tactical strategy RPGs, so this is gonna be good, I think. I hope. The Kickstarter campaign's only been operating for 2 or 3 days now. They're already up over $300,000, pushing towards their $600,000 goal. They've got a buttload of stretch goals and all sorts of fancy crap if you feel like shelling out enough money. I believe the $20 tier is the minimum in order to acquire a digital version of the game. This project is initially going to be being developed for a PC, Mac, Windows tablets, and Linux, although they do have stretch goals up in the millions mark involving the 3DS. So with only 3 days gone, they're on track to hit some of those stretched goals. And I really hope that they do, because I wouldn't mind seeing Matsuno's work on a Sony console again. Because that would just be a super flashback central for me. Now there isn't any gameplay to show off quite yet. There is a nice little video detailing the team and the concept work behind it, as well as a full detail of how the class system will work and the gameplay system will work. It's basically a spiritual successor to the Tactics series. So if you're familiar with that, you'll have a pretty good idea of what this game is going to turn out to be. If you care to pledge to this campaign, I will link you to it down below, or at least read over some of the details of it, since I haven't covered all of them in this video. Like I said, if I do pledge money, it will be solely because Matsuno is on the project, and I would love to see what he's got in mind for this one. So be sure you go check that out. Alright, and our last piece of news comes from Nintendo and their financial troubles. Now, if you haven't heard, Nintendo's head honcho Satoru Iwata sat down and gave us a bunch of numbers and financial crap, basically stating their projections were way too high for both the Wii U and the 3DS, and their projected profit has actually turned into a projected loss, which is no bueno for the wallet. Iwata went on to say that they hadn't accounted for price drops or console bundles when they had initially set out these projections, so that probably affected their numbers. He did say that the sales of the Wii U and the 3DS had improved significantly over the holidays, although not enough to cover the margin that they had set forth early on last year. Now, Iwata went on to say that they've been talking about a new business structure. He didn't really go into much detail about what he meant by that, although given the direction that they've been going, they probably need some injection of new ideas, or at least a new business plan, because what they're doing now is not going to keep them afloat. So for all those people that are standing on the rooftops and the mountaintops screaming, I told you so, Nintendo's gonna fail, I don't think that this is that big of a red flag quite yet. They still have a ton of cash on hand. The 3DS is still selling gangbusters. They've got the handheld market basically monopolized. And Nintendo's dug themselves out of some pretty deep trouble before, so I don't think this is anywhere near the beginning of the end for Nintendo. And we'll definitely learn more about perhaps where the company is headed at the end of January when they hold their corporate management briefing in Tokyo. So don't panic, Nintendo fanboys. This is troubling news, although it might be the kick in the ass that Nintendo needs to get themselves turned around. Alright, so I think that about covers what I wanted to talk about today. As always, if I did happen to miss any part of any of these news stories, please inform me down below in the comments, or bring some attention to maybe another piece of news that I didn't cover and I might next week, or I don't know, maybe throw in a video in the middle of the week. If this is the first time that you're joining me for This Week in Gaming, please be sure you subscribe so you can come back and join me next weekend. I always update, usually on Saturdays or Sundays, with gaming news stuff. And I intermingle a bunch of content in the middle of the week as well, including item get reviews, critical hit reviews, and an occasional Let's Play when I feel like sitting down and actually playing a game or two every so often. So that should do it. Thank you very much again for joining me. As always, this is Aliside, and this has been Your Week in Gaming. See you next time.